We have a guest speaker who I will introduce in a moment, who will introduce our topic. And then later we'll break out into small groups for about a half an hour of discussion. And it's not going to be enough. So I'm warning you, say, what's it? My niece used to have an expression, talk as much as you need and as little as you can, because we really have to be succinct in our messages, because there are so many wonderful messages that are going to be shared tonight, and we never have enough time. So just alerting you to that in advance. And now I'd like to introduce our speaker for tonight, Christopher DeSanti. Christopher DeSanti is an international transformational trainer and educator of higher knowledge. His background stems from a sudden shift in awakening at the age of 16. From that time on, his life has focused on understanding human consciousness and what is needed for a human being to awaken into a life of love, freedom, and joy. For the past 20 years, this journey has led him to fascinating discoveries, including exploring Native American culture and philosophy, and North and South American shamanic traditions, the great teachers of non-duality in India, and A Course in Miracles. Christopher has
actually must learn to love our neighbor with no exceptions, because to whatever degree we hold grievances, to whatever degree that we push our neighbor away, our brothers and sisters, and any human being, any part of life where we push it away and try to separate off, we will suffer. And we know this. I think anyone that's on here with the intention of learning how to love thy neighbor and intensify the light knows what it feels like to be cut off from other human beings, knows what it feels like to be cut off from, really from our neighbors. And now more than ever, it's really ultimately needed to be able to elevate how we see each other, and realizing that these two teachings, if you will, or two distinct thought systems, one built on love, spirit, the other built on fear, the ego, let's call it that for now. They have a very different way of seeing the world. And the way that the ego's taught us to see the world is through separateness. We're all different. Look at the different, different faiths, different ethnicities, different genders, different. So we see differences. And if you look at the way that the ego operates in our minds, it always is trying to push us and have a wall between our neighbors. And that wall isn't just physically, but it's also mentally. It's also the way we see each other, the grievances that we hold, thinking how people should be different, and we have all these belief systems that we operate from. Well, from the thought system of, the Course says, from the thought system of spirit, if you will, spirit sees the sameness. One of the things I have behind me, this picture, I really love it, because if you're looking at, never forget this, for in them you will find yourself or lose yourself. And I think that that's very profound in how we seek to see each other. And we could celebrate the differences, and then also know that we're connected at a very deep level. So when I talk about loving thy neighbor, no exceptions, actually the Course says something very powerful about loving our neighbors. And it says that in the world, everything is either love or a call for love. Some of you may have heard that before. So even the people in your life that you see maybe out in the world that are hard to love, know that underneath it, everyone has had challenging times. You see people who are angry and shut down and closed off and aggressive and have all of this, really anger within themselves. When you look back, most people have hurt hearts. Most people have had things that have happened that have hurt them deep inside. And A Course in Miracles calls that's actually a call for love. If you look at anyone that lives with hatred in their heart, or anger, attack, judging thy neighbors, and exceptions, that you look at them and people experience lack of joy, lack of freedom, lack of fulfillment. So it's actually through how we see our neighbors and learning to say, you might not agree with everyone, and that's okay, but never to respond with anything but love, to never condemn my neighbor, because then I end up, in the last few minutes before you go into breakout rooms, this is one of the great lessons, or if you will, one of the great curriculums that the Course calls forgiveness. That when we have exceptions with our neighbors, when we want to judge and we want to condemn and we want to hold grievances and we want to hold differences and different opinions, see, look, we're separate from each other, and we want to make ourselves better and put others down and see through those lenses, that comes from our past. And when you think about what forgiveness is, it's to give forth all of my past judgments and associations that still keep me a prisoner in my own heart, my own mind. When we can forgive that, to give it forth, to see a new way of looking at the world and each other. So that the title tonight, Loving Thy Neighbor, No Exceptions, is really perfect, because there ultimately are no exceptions. And wherever we make those exceptions, it will end up working against our own best interest for ourselves as well. And when we realize that, we have the opportunity to live a life of joy, of love, of freedom, of connection, because we are all connected at a very, very deep level. And when we seek to see that, that's where really the beauty lies for ourselves, and we can live a life of love and of connection with each other. And what a beautiful way to live.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity.
And now, as Christopher said, we will be breaking into small discussion groups for the next half hour. And Reverend Todd is going to accomplish that miracle for us. There will be a facilitator for each group who will guide the discussion in keeping with the principles for interfaith dialogue that ALL Interfaith developed years ago, and they are tried and true. I don't know if we have a slide for that, Todd, but I will just read a couple of them, even if the slide isn't there. Some of the principles that ALL adopts for our dialogues are acceptance, authenticity, non-judgment, respecting our differences, keeping each other safe, listening and hearing, using I statements. And those are just a few. Let's see what the rest of them are. There we go. And there will be some that resonate more for each of us, things that we know we need practice in, and that's why we remind ourselves and each other of these principles of dialogue, because once we know how to talk with each other, and I think it goes right back to what Christopher was saying, you talk to somebody else the way you talk to yourself. And so to offer the support to others feeds back to offering support to yourself. So that's beautiful. And so we're going to have the discussions in concert, in accordance with these principles. And all the groups will discuss 2 questions. That's all. 2 questions. What impacted you the most from Christopher DeSanti's comments? And what is most difficult for you loving your neighbor?
Several very interesting situations with people, with ourselves and our neighbors. And what we came away with is, as a kernel, is that many times the lack of control that comes up, that we perceive within an interaction, will cause us to feel fear instead of love. And that will cause us to lose our peace.
Love is about coming from a place where we're equals because we're human beings together. And I wouldn't want to put anything else out that would attack or condemn or hurt another, so I can be free myself. And see if you could try it next time. It takes actually eventually see them as a gift. We can't get there right away, but as a gift to find a deeper place of, and some of you said forgiveness. A Course in Miracles says forgiveness is the only path that there is. And forgiveness is also of myself, because love is of myself as well. Somebody else said that. And that if I can find a way to not react, or if I find myself a reaction, to stop, pause. Like, okay, what does peace look like here? I don't know. And I can start to listen to a higher self, a higher power, whatever, start to listen to that voice in you that is always speaking for love and for peace. So practice it. A concept, and us talking for 15 minutes won't be enough. We get to practice. And how many?
I did want to also share that this month's roundtable, the event that we are concluding now, is part of World Interfaith Harmony Week. And I invite you all to Google World Interfaith Harmony Week.